Mickey Mouse is now evil Emperor Palpatine. More today on Come On Now. So when I was a little kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, this was what Disney was.
The Wonderful World of Disney.
That show was called The Wonderful World of Disney, and it aired from, I think, the 60s to the early 80s, and it was Disney's face to the world. This was before Disney actually owned everything under the sun. They hadn't bought ABC yet, they hadn't bought ESPN yet, and they hadn't bought Marvel and Star Wars yet. They didn't own everything. Disney made cartoon films primarily. They made family films like The Apple Dumpling Gang and pretty much anything that Tim Conway was in. And everything they made was family friendly. They had movies like Where the Red Fern Grows. I mean, just really good, wholesome family entertainment. Disney ran on hard times, but then they resurrected themselves, I think under Eisner's leadership probably. And now Disney is this juggernaut that owns literally everything. And they've been screwing things up left and right. Now, when Disney bought Star Wars, I actually wasn't worried. Disney has been making movies for a very long time, and they've made family-friendly movies for a very long time. A friend of mine back in the day when all of that happened was within 5 minutes was saying, oh, Disney's going to ruin Star Wars. They're going to ruin this. And I actually went to Disney's defense and said, no, they're not going to ruin Star Wars. They know how to make movies. They know how to entertain families. They know how to keep it clean. And they know how to do things for a broad audience. So if any hands were good for Star Wars to be in, Disney's were probably arguably the best. Well, boy, was I wrong, because Disney has been screwing up Star Wars ever since they bought it. They've been tearing the franchise apart. The 3 sequel trilogy movies are abysmal. They're so bad that I wrote an article as a lifelong Star Wars fan arguing that those films should not exist. I spent money seeing those films in theaters. I've seen them all more than once. And they're terrible. Disney has been trashing Star Wars ever since they bought it. But The Mandalorian was different. The Mandalorian arguably saved Star Wars from oblivion. The Mandalorian has done so many things right under the leadership of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. These are 2 individuals who know how to entertain, they know how to tell a good story, and they know what the fans want. I don't think anybody else at Disney actually does. I think it's just these 2, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. I've argued in the past that they should be given Star Wars and just let them run with it. I still believe that, but I no longer care, because of what Disney has just done with Gina Carano. Up to this point, up to what they've done with Gina, I would argue that The Mandalorian has done everything right. Just look back over the last couple of years, the first 2 seasons that they've done. The Mandalorian gave us Mando as a star of a spaghetti western in space in the Star Wars universe, and it's awesome.
Jack de Gratu!
The Mandalorian gave us Baby Yoda.
Perhaps it could live many centuries.
Cover the parts. Hey, spit that out.
Something as a lifelong Star Wars fan I have wanted to see for years is Boba Fett in action doing his thing. Boba Fett being Boba Fett. The Mandalorian gave us that. The Mandalorian gave us so many other things that have been fantastic. It gave us Carl Weathers coming back as a character in Star Wars and playing his heart out and actually directing one of the episodes, one of the better episodes. It gave us stormtroopers fighting and actually hitting their targets occasionally. It gave us aerial battles. It gave us Mandalorians in Mandalorian armor engaged in combat. It gave us Titus Welliver as an Imperial officer. It's given us so many great things. But behind the scenes, there has been this fight within Lucasfilm, which is now owned by Disney, over whether Star Wars is going to go woke or whether it's going to be about story. And on the two sides, from what you can gather from outside, you've got the woke side represented and led by Kathleen Kennedy, and you've got the story side led by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. And there's been this civil war behind the scenes. And Gina Carano, I'm afraid, is just a casualty of that civil war. Carano is, of course, the former MMA fighter who plays Cara Dune in The Mandalorian. Since that first season, Gina Carano's portrayal of Cara Dune has really won over the fans. She's lit up every scene she's been in, and she's a credible, believable, strong woman in a physical combat role that really no one who knows anything about combat or knows anything about warfare or really anything else really questions. She's been really, really good in the role as a feminine and strong, combative woman. It really works, and she's one of the few actors who could really play this role believably. Well, now, of course, you've probably heard that Disney has fired her and she won't be appearing in any more Lucasfilm productions because of tweets that the media early on claimed were anti-Semitic. The tweet that she put out, is actually an Instagram post, was not anti-Semitic. It was warning of the dangers of cancel culture and comparing them to the early years of the Nazi regime in Germany. Not the Holocaust. That's not what she was talking about. She was actually talking about how people were othered and ostracized leading up to and enabling the Holocaust. That story, as you can see, is actually not anti-Semitic in any way. It's anti-Nazi, which is perfectly fine and actually to be encouraged. And it's actually saying that people hated Jews because of what others were saying about them. And she's not wrong about that. She's actually not wrong about cancel culture either. Now, my preference, as I've said before, is not to go to Nazi references because, well, frankly, everyone uses them, which is actually another point to be made in all of this. If we can no longer bring up those analogies, then there goes half the content on the internet. Because, look, I've been arguing on the internet for 20 years, and nearly every post you write, somebody's going to use Godwin's Law. They're going to bring up a Nazi reference at some point. It's a given. Now, Carano is not the only cast member of The Mandalorian to bring up a Nazi analogy. In fact, The Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal, did the same thing in 2018. Pascal got everything wrong in that tweet, including the photo, which is not actually on the border in the United States. I believe it's a photo of Palestinian kids. But he's wrong on the analogy. But if we're going to start firing people for bringing up Nazi analogies, then, okay, Carano has to go, but so does Pedro Pascal. And so does this guy. So that guy is a producer who still works at Disney. He's still employed there. That tweet, as you can see, is not really terribly recent. It's been out there, and it's been highlighted before, and yet that guy still has his job. I'm not calling for any of these people to actually be fired. Here's what I'm calling for. If you think somebody is wrong about something, the first thing you shouldn't do is prove them right, which is what Disney did with Gina Carano. Gina Carano issued a warning about treating people poorly and how that leads to much worse consequences down the road. Essentially, silencing people can lead to violence and other things. She's warning against that. She's not saying that's a good thing. She's saying that's a bad thing. And the first thing Disney does is fire her, therefore trying to silence her, therefore proving her point. Really? Is this what you want to be doing, Disney? Over the years, Disney has morphed from being the wonderful world of Disney that I knew from Saturday evening TV after NFL football was over, to being what it is now, which is this kind of empire that owns everything and seems to have a dictatorial bent when it comes to free speech, and is quite hypocritical. Pedro Pascal still has his job. Gina Carano does not still have her job. In fact, I think Pedro Pascal is getting a new movie or a new TV series, and she is not. So you throw away the strong woman, keep the guy. Okay, yeah, that's not suspicious at all. But that's not even Disney's worst behavior. Right now, Disney's worst behavior is probably how it's handling its relationship with, of course, China. Back in September, Mulan, the live-action version of that film, came out, and in the credits, Disney thanked specific Chinese government entities that are right now engaged in horrible human rights abuses against the Uyghurs in China. These are concentration camps. These are rape camps. These are ideological re-education camps. These are terrible things. The Chinese government's doing this right now, and Disney is going to bat for them. It made a film over there, and it thanked the specific government entities that are doing these things. This is terrible. This is not the Mickey Mouse that I grew up with, the Donald Duck, the lovable characters. Mickey Mouse has become the evil Emperor Palpatine. This cannot stand, and as long as it does, I'm not going to be a fan anymore. I became a fan of Star Wars when I was 6 years old. Today, I canceled Disney Plus, and I won't watch another thing until Disney addresses this that comes from that empire.
In order to ensure the security and continuing stability, the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society.
So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause.
Mickey Mouse, don't be Palpatine. Come on now. Come out of this. My name is Bryan Preston.